Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us here for Jane Office Hours, episode number 8, Creating Meaningful and Inclusive Connections to Grow Your Community. I'm your host, David Bruton Jr., physical therapist here in Denver, Colorado, and today we are joined by two amazing guests. Currently, right now, just one, but the other one hopefully will join us, Roxanne, a registered social worker and psychotherapist. They will both share their insights on building trust, fostering inclusivity, and creating a strong community connection. We'll discuss how our personal experiences shape the way that we engage others and the importance of representation in these professional spaces. I'd love to take a moment to welcome our guests and give them time in the space to share a little bit about who they are and what they do. We're excited to have you here, Roxanne. And at the end, we encourage you to ask questions, type them in, provide comments of how we can help you address and become better at including yourself in the community and entrenching yourself to make the world a better place. So, with that being said, Roxanne Francis, tell us a little bit about yourself and thank you.
Of course, so glad to be here. As you mentioned, I am a social worker and psychotherapist. I run a group therapy practice where I live in Toronto, Ontario, or just outside of Toronto. I have been doing this work, this therapy work now for about 16 years, but I've been running a practice for 6 years. It's a full group, so I've got a team of 9 other therapists plus myself, a student, and 2 admin staff. And I do some things outside of therapy as well. I teach part-time at the university. I consult on mental wellness in the workplace to different organizations, offer keynotes here and there. And I support other therapists as they are looking to grow their practice to the end that I started a conference 4 years ago called the Therapist Lounge, where we support therapists in private practice, mental health therapists in private practice, on business things, marketing, finance, all those things, as well as entrepreneur wellness. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I have 2 children and I have a partner, and I just try to keep it low key.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like a lot, right? We talked a little bit backstage, like, oh, I just do a few things. No, you do a little bit of everything, and then some and excel at it. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing your introduction. Um, oh, and right on time. I guess we have my queen jumping in right here. My queen,
Okay.
how are you
Hi,
doing?
everyone. Sorry, my connection never acts up, but here we are.
It happens. It happens. Technology is a bugaboo sometimes. Go ahead. We just had Roxanne introduce herself, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is MyQueen Dickens. I go by Queen. I am an IV hydration business owner here in the DMV area, and I'm also a certified nurse midwife. So, certified nurse midwife by trade, but my business is booming. So, I love that here in the DMV area on a mobile basis. I was a travel nurse for a very long time, originally from Chicago, Illinois. My mom and dad are Jamaican. So, we had
Hey.
no choice but to become a nurse, lawyer, doctor, engineer. So, I
Yep.
became a nurse. And from there, we traveled to so many different cities. And when I say we, my sister and I were twins, and we both have been nurses for a very long time. So we came to DC. We loved the Black excellence. We loved the opportunity. So we started our business here. We planted some roots. So right now, my IV hydration business is on a mobile basis. We scaled really fast through partnership and collaboration, and it's just been amazing since then. We currently use janeapp for our charting system, EMR, and like our SMS marketing, and it's been such a pivotal part of our journey and just helping us really scale and automate the back end. So
Mhm.
No, that's great. When did you move out to the DMV?
2019.
Okay, so you were there right
Ooh.
after me. I was there in 2016. I did a stint out there for a year in DMV. I love the Black excellence there. It was a lot different than Denver for sure. A
A lot
lot
different
different
from
than
Chicago.
Colorado for
Definitely.
sure. For sure. Well, yeah, let's jump into the conversation. This podcast is called Creating Meaningful and Inclusive Connections to Grow Your Community. And I'd like to open the floor to both of y'all. It's like, what does that mean to you? What does it look like as far as creating a meaningful and inclusive connection within your respective communities?
I think that honestly, for me, community is the backbone of my success. The amount of knowledge the amount of impact that you can make with others can really help expedite your process and help you navigate things easier. I think as an entrepreneur, often we're in this alone space where we think we have to do everything. But when you realize that you can grow stronger with other people and other minds and brains, you really are able to change the world. So I think community is the backbone of my life, my business, and everything that I stand for.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I agree. I think community is absolutely everything. You could probably do this alone, but it'll be a lot harder and
Mhm.
it'll take longer. And
Yeah.
so I think when you tap into community, there is this you don't feel alone. Sometimes when
Mhm.
you feel alone, you feel like you're failing. When you connect with other people, you realize this is actually just par for the course. Everybody goes through this, right? When you tap into community, it can be a launching pad because so many people are connected to so many other people and resources, and people are more willing to help you than sometimes we realize. And so,
Yeah.
connecting with people, reaching across the table, making a phone call, meeting up for a coffee, or just checking in, right, can really make the difference when you're an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree to both of y'all, with both of you all, as in regards to that connection, that community, and not being afraid to put yourself out there and not being afraid to ask for that help or, build those relationships, that rapport that will ultimately help you grow. Like, been very fortunate to join the Jane team. Um, I've had great partnerships with Live Sotheby's and DPS Foundation in regards to my childhood literacy foundation, as far as how can we impact the community, how can we outreach a little bit more, how can we show that people of color can be successful outside of just the sport realm, right? Like there's ideologies like the only way you're successful and the only way to make it out of the hood. But then if you're in Dayton, Ohio, Chicago, uh, outside of Toronto, how the only way that's seen to make it out of there is through sports or through something along those lines. But there's so many other avenues, and we have that power to mentor and support that mentorship and create these
Right.
strong and lasting connections within the communities. So I think y'all both bring up some great points as far as how that community has helped you shape your current practices, right? Um, you're over here having this conference that's going to expand to multiple cities here by utilizing the community and the connections that
Mm,
you built. And
mhm,
same thing for you, Queen. Like your business is booming in DMV area because you built these connections with, it could be different doctors' offices, it could be different sports teams out there, it could be whatever your connection is in that sense. You've been able to grow and foster and, essentially make yourself successful in your respective spaces. So kudos to y'all. So let's jump into the questions. How has being a BIPOC business owner shaped your journey? And I want to know what the highs, the lows, the challenges that you faced along those ways, because we get a lot of those as people of color, right?
And definitely. I mean, honestly, coming from Chicago, there wasn't a lot of diversity there. Either you were in a very Black space and it
Mhm.
wasn't as excellent as the DMV is,
Mhm.
or you were in a very white space or a non-Black space where you weren't accepted or you didn't feel like you belonged. So it was very segregated. So when I left Chicago, I went to an HBCU where it was in Kentucky, though, Kentucky State University. So although the
Hey,
HBCU
Kentucky.
was although the HBCU was very Black and
Hmm.
BIPOC,
Hmm.
outskirts of that, it was not. So when I graduated
Hmm.
from the HBCU, I then chose to work as a nurse in the Kentucky space, and there was no diversity. I became a nurse very young when I was about 20 years old. The hospital that I worked at, I was one of the only Black nurses on the unit. And that lack of diversity, it was scary for me being a new grad nurse. I had Black patients that when they seen me, like their eyes lit up. And for me, I knew that I needed to be in that space, especially labor and
Hmm.
delivery, birth work, X, Y, and Z. Throughout my journey staying in Kentucky, I knew it wasn't the place for me, but I realized that I wanted to chase diversity. So when I started travel nursing, I actually traveled to places that were diverse. So we're talking Texas, California, the Oakland area, we're talking DC, and I made sure I chased that diversity. But when I came to DC, I loved it so much because I seen people who looked like me doing amazing, great things. So it didn't confine me to a box, and it helped me expand my mindset. So I think that there's so much power in surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, but also realizing that you belong. You belong to be there just as much as your counterparts, and you belong there because you have impact to make and you have to reach back and help other people that look like you and other young women and men know that it's possible because they see you. So
Mhm.
my journey has
Yeah.
been up and down, and like I said, Kentucky was not the best place as far as diversity, but it has shaped me into the woman that I am today. And now that I'm in other spaces, I know that I belong, and I know that I may be different, but that doesn't mean that I don't belong to be there and belong to grow.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that.
No, thank you. Sure.
Mm.
Yeah,
Great
absolutely.
response.
Absolutely. Roxanne.
Well, my journey is a little bit all over the place. So I was born and raised in Jamaica, actually, and
Okay.
came to Toronto when I was maybe when Queen was finishing up school. I came to Toronto when I was almost 20 years old. And one thing about being raised around people who look like you, in the country at least, for me, is that it gave you a level of confidence, like there, because I grew up seeing everyone in leadership more or less looking like me. It didn't feel like it felt like whenever I walked into a space that I just belonged there, right? So
Mhm.
when I got here, I connected with other Black individuals who would say, I'm the only person in the room and it's affected me in this way, or I was the only person in the class or the neighborhood or whatever, and it impacted me in this way. And I was just like, I'm just gonna walk in like my name is on the door. Because that's kind of how
Yeah.
you were raised to believe that, you
Mhm.
can just do the thing. And so I feel like I have approached life from a perspective of I belong there. Like I should do
Yeah.
the things like everybody else.
Mhm.
Um, when I started my practice, I will say it was before the pandemic. And I will say that I want to say maybe about 70% of my therapy clients were white.
Mhm. Mhm.
And even within the city and the area of Toronto. And then after the pandemic, when people started to really look inward, people started to look at um, the racial dynamics in our society. People started to look at how mental health was impacting everyone.
Mhm.
Um, I think Black individuals, certainly where I was living, really started to take their mental health seriously.
Yep.
And also during that season, because mental health was becoming a thing, I was given some opportunities to be in the media. And so I was often on the radio, on TV, talking about mental health, and my dark brown face was all over the place. And
Mhm.
so people started to normalize the idea of um, melanated individuals receive
Mhm.
mental health support. And
Mhm.
so I think since the pandemic, my clientele right now, I would say, is maybe 85% Black. Like the numbers have shifted completely.
Okay. Mhm.
And the other thing that I have found is that I work in a position, almost like in a position of leadership in my in this field. And a lot of younger Black therapists, mental health therapists who are coming up are, looking to me for support, mentorship, and so on. But the truth of the matter is, whereas there might have been a smaller number of Black clinicians, it's that number has exploded. And, you know,
Mhm.
racialized therapists are not just Black, but racialized therapists are everywhere. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. And it's imperative. People like to feel comfortable and not having to explain all
Yeah.
the things when they go to work with somebody. And
Yeah.
it really the landscape has changed for sure. Definitely
Mhm.
here.
Mhm. Yeah. I guess I would like to follow up with both of y'all. in this space, in your respective careers, as a Black business owner, as a person of color, as somebody who's trying to pioneer diversity in the healthcare, have you dealt with imposter syndrome in itself? Like, not just as a student, like, right, we come from schools like, oh God, we don't know if we can do this, we're not. But now as a business owner, you've been entrenched in your respective careers for however long. Do you still run into imposter syndrome? Is that something that leaves you as you get more and more confident, more and more practice, or do you every now and then fight up against that?
So honestly, in the last year, I have not dealt with imposter syndrome. Now, when I was in my business first started and kind of growing through things, like you said, immediately after college, of course, you deal with imposter syndrome as a new grad nurse. I just became recently a new midwife. So many different pivots, but I'm so deep into my faith that I know wherever I'm supposed to be, like I belong there. So I
Mhm,
haven't dealt with imposter syndrome recently, but I mean, it may come
mhm,
back up, who knows? But I think when you're rooted in not just being confident externally, but internally and also rooted in
mhm.
faith, then that imposter syndrome kind of shifts a little bit. And you know that
Yeah,
even if it doesn't work out, it's okay. That means it's
yeah,
not meant for you. So
yeah.
yeah, I haven't dealt with it recently, but when I
Okay.
did deal with it, it was definitely triggering because sometimes you just feel like you don't belong and it'll be seen as an obstacle and maybe you should stop and it'll kind
Yeah,
of deter
yeah,
your journey. But
yeah.
I think that looking at people that were ahead of me, like trailing through their journey, inspired me to keep going.
Mhm, mhm. That's Roxanne.
Um, I think I have some thoughts about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Uh,
Please
when
share.
I
I want to know.
when I first started, I think I did experience a little bit of it, but the more I have given this thought, the more I've talked to my clients, spoken to my clients about it, and I've spoken about it, like from a training perspective. I realized that imposter syndrome one is about um, being new to a thing and not necessarily being unable to do the thing,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
When you are new, you have lots to learn. And the discomfort that we feel is in part attributed to the gap between what I know now and what I have yet to learn,
mhm.
right? It isn't about you not belonging there. It's about
Yeah.
this capacity to grow, right?
Mhm, mhm,
That's one thing. And the other part of imposter syndrome from a person of color standpoint is that there are multiple places and spaces when it comes to leadership and running a business, those kinds of things, where those spaces have not been attributed to us. Those
yeah,
spaces and places were not necessarily made for us. And
mhm.
so when we actually get there, there's a discomfort that we feel because we look
Absolutely.
around and nobody
Mhm.
might look like you. You look
Exactly.
around and nobody else is in leadership like who looks like you, who talks like you, who
Mhm,
has the same cultural connection, how we
mhm.
do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Um, and so that might make you feel uncomfortable, but it
Mhm.
has nothing to do with being an imposter. Imposters are
Yeah,
people who trick their way into doing things and taking spaces and places where
they don't want. Yeah.
they don't they don't have the skill or
Mhm,
merit to be there.
mhm,
And we know we
mhm.
all got the skill and the merit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're not imposters. So I don't subscribe to that anymore.
Sure. No, that's great insight there. And I only bring up the imposter syndrome because when you're going out and trying to create these connections with these different community leaders and things, like now you're in that space, like, okay, they might not look like me, or they might not have the same diversity of thought as me, or we might just
Mhm.
bump heads. Like there's that fear aspect that can be associated with that imposter syndrome. And it's not necessarily as a practitioner, but it's also as a business owner or as a parent or as a brother, or like
Yes.
it can essentially can rear itself in all these different facets of your life. But to Queen's points, like if you're rooted in your faith and your belief and your confidence internally and externally, then you can essentially battle through that and not have to deal with it for 15 years or a year or 6 months, however long you can go on that stretch. So no, thank you both for that great insight. Now, your cultural background, you both have different, very different cultural backgrounds. Aside from both having some correlation with Jamaica, you know, how has your background created stronger and more meaningful connections within your communities and also worldwide?
Hmm. Well, one thing is for sure, the Black community in Toronto is an immigrant community, right? Most of us are here because our parents, grandparents immigrated here. And, you know, I am a direct import. And so I think when I show up as myself, it puts people at ease, right? Because they realize that there's some kind of connection, whether they're from, you know, maybe whether or not they have connections to my country or a different country in the Caribbean. There is some kind of connection, even if it's not the Caribbean, even if it's from the continent of Africa. But there are those similarities, right? And so I find that people are put at ease. Um, and even if I walk into a space and I'm the only melanated person that's there, people are interested in what I have to say, where I'm from, how I do the thing, and how I do things differently. And they're also wanting to find out, how have you brought in people into your practice? By showing up in an authentic way. And so I talk to people about showing up professionally, but also showing up authentically, because at the end of the day, that's the sauce, right?
Yeah.
People are wanting to know how, outside of the business things, the marketing and all those pieces, you have to be able to show up as yourself and bring all of those pieces with you into the room, into the practice. I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think the authenticity, good Lord, that you bring up is real. Like I felt that in PT schools. Like I felt like I had to assimilate and appropriate to meet the language, that vernacular to fit in. And then it's like I'm tired, I'm exhausted. The patients aren't getting the real me. It's like, no, the
Right.
real me is like I'm listening to hip hop, Kendrick Lamar, sorry, Drake, Kendrick Lamar. I listen to all of that here, like having my culture, being myself, and like it makes my job more enjoyable. It makes it feel more real, and like there's that relatability piece that you're jiving with. So no, appreciate it, Queen.
Well, definitely. I agree with everything that Roxanne said as well. I think that being a Black woman, often we will confine ourselves to boxes and not really expand in spaces. But after the pandemic, especially, I think that universally, like people started to look at as Black as being cool. And it was just like a weird space for me to like feel because I felt like this is not a trend. This is our life, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that overall, being Black, or a person of color, we're multifaceted, multidimensional, especially being providers and business owners. And when people see us showing up as our authentic self, it just gives them more comfortability to not only be our client, our patient, but also our colleague. And like Roxanne said, there are a lot of nurses that reach out to me asking about IV hydration, midwifery, and wanting to know more because they see someone that looks like them that has that multidimensional life where, yes, I live a very fulfilling life. Yes, I am a provider. Yes, I am a business owner, but I am not confined to a box. And I think that's the beauty of being a person of color.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we embrace and celebrate our differences, right? Like we create these spaces for people to feel valued. We create these spaces where they can feel comfortable and they can let loose, or just take off whatever layer of their onion that they're in and just be their real selves that life kind of forces us to create sometimes.
Mhm.
And for me, like my cultural experiences is different. Like I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I lived in Kentucky, so I know what you're talking about, Queen. Like I was born in Kentucky. Um, and just finding these just trying to find a safe space. And
Mm,
when you look different, it's tough in certain places like Kentucky or the Miamisburg, Ohio's, or something along those lines. But these cultural differences that we have shaped us. Like I don't feel like our life is, we're defined by who we are now. It's defined by the experiences that we've had throughout that time. and we're always adapting, always changing, and we're always trying to create and be better for ourselves, become better, well-rounded individuals. So utilizing our culture only strengthens our connection with our patients. Like, right?
Yeah.
It's like our culture is that relatability piece to things. Like, and for me, it's like, okay, I'm a person of color and I'm a male and I'm a business owner, but like I also have a different perspective with my cultural background. Like I played football, so now like I have this connection to the sports world, but we have we have our own respective connections that will be able to correlate and relate to patients and pull them in and kind of create this natural bond that you can build these lifelong relationships with, and not only in the community space, but with your patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Yeah. So you all are well versed. So what tips do you have, to share with these practice owners to create, these inclusivity efforts and truly reflect and serve your community?
I definitely believe that the power of partnership, community, and collaboration is the way to scale. I know as providers and practice owners, we know that, the money is there. It's very
Mhm,
lucrative in any industry. But in order to make the money and also the impact, I think that scaling through partnership is an amazing route. And you can target those, BIPOC businesses or the businesses that are more inclusive. We know that the
mhm,
climate of the country right now is not really for us. So, with
mhm,
that being said,
mhm,
definitely making sure that we are rooted in showing up as a community and targeting
mhm,
those companies that may be businesses of color or owned by women or owned by minorities.
Mhm,
Definitely.
mhm,
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 mhm. That's really important, Queen. I'm glad that you said that. I think one of the things that I'm noticing as I talk to other practitioners is that they're saying, I'm not sure if you find this at all, but I'm hearing practitioners say things like, well, I don't know how to network or market because I'm a bit of an introvert. And I just want to shake them and say, get out of that. Like, get over yourself. Because to your point, Queen, the power is in the connection. The
Mm,
power is in making the connections. And I think sometimes you have to get dressed and get out of your house
mhm,
and
mhm, mhm,
go where the business is, connect people, look people in the eyes, get off social media, shake hands, go to the meeting, step out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you have to go into a room where maybe you're not, for me, I'm a mental health therapist, so maybe they're not talking about mental health. Maybe they're talking about sports, or maybe they're talking about nursing. But sometimes I need to get into those other rooms and introduce myself and make connections and learn how to talk to
mhm.
people because we're all
Yeah.
human. We're all
Yep.
running businesses. We're all trying to be successful. But
Mhm,
I find that once you make the connections with people, the doors just open up. And so you can't just stay at home, sit on your hands with the door closed and say, business is hard. Sometimes you got to
mhm.
get up and make it happen.
Yep.
definitely.
Yep.
I agree with you,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Roxanne. I think that we don't even realize how everything kind of intersects. Even though you're like a mental health provider, I'm an IV hydration business owner. You deal with sports, like it all intersects in some way where we can benefit each other in some way
Mhm.
somehow. So I think networking, even if
Absolutely.
it's not within your niche, you may find a space where there's no one scaling that lane, and you can kind of take over and create a lane for yourself. So
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to piggyback a little bit more on that. Like, think outside of your clinic doors, right? Like, not
Mhm.
necessarily just thinking about your practice, but if there's some type of relationship that you have with a literacy program or a non-for-profit organization or a school that you went to or whatnot, that's not necessarily connected directly to your clinic door. Those are community
Right.
connections, right? Like, that's one way, like, you can not only just serve the community in a multifaceted way, but that community could potentially serve you back, right?
yes.
Like it's that synergistic relationship that you're kind of creating. It's like, no, I'm here for you, and whatever comes back to me is just bonus. But I'm entrenching myself in a way where it's like, yo, I'm more than just a practitioner. I'm more than just a business owner. Like I actually give two damns about the community, and I want to do more for the community. So it's a way to build trust and that commitment and those relationships outside of that direct patient care.
Mm.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like y'all are bringing up some great points. And why does representation matter? Why does mentorship matter? Um, as a BIPOC business owner, as a woman business owner, as you go far.
I think that is everything. I mean, if I knew what I knew now when I became a nurse, a midwife, a business owner, as far as mentorship and community, I would have been able to scale 10 times faster. I would have had so much more of a Rolodex of a network. So I think
Mhm,
that definitely knowing that representation matters because, there are people that don't believe that they can do something just because they don't see someone that looks like them. So
mhm,
showing up, scaling your dreams, and really creating your dream life is going to inspire someone else to believe that they can do it, number one.
mhm,
Number
mhm,
two, representation matters for our patients, our clients. Sometimes they don't believe that they have access to certain type of care, resources because they don't see people that look like them, or they don't feel comfortable to get those services from people that are not like them or BIPOC or
mhm, mhm.
providers of color. So I definitely do think that representation matters from both standpoints as a business owner, a mentor, and a provider.
100%. 100%. I just want to echo that. Representation matters from the standpoint of uh, growing your business, right? As a business owner, because sometimes you walk into spaces and people might not think that persons of color or Black individuals are are thinking in that way. We're not thinking
Mhm.
from an entrepreneurial mindset. Maybe when they think of us, they only, it's very stereotypical.
Yeah.
So showing
Mhm,
up and representing helps to
mhm,
break those stereotypes, right? Helps to
mhm,
show people what we're really about and all the things that we
mhm,
can do. And I
mhm,
think representation matters from the standpoint of the patient or the client. They need to see someone who looks like them. They need to see someone who speaks the same language as them.
mhm.
They need to see someone who, where you can just exchange a look and you know what's going on, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I
Yep.
cannot tell you how many times people have said, you know, I saw you on TV and I didn't realize that Black people went to therapy.
Mm.
Right? Or I've
Mhm,
had people say to me, my daughter, my niece, my so and so is interested in going into your field, and I'm so happy that she was able to see that you
yep.
were doing it and you're having success. And so it
Mhm,
shows people what's possible. It
yep.
shows other entrepreneurs who are coming up behind us what's
Mhm,
possible, because many of us are
mhm.
kicking doors down doing the things that we do. And
Absolutely.
it's important for us to represent, kick those doors down so that those coming behind us can know that it's possible.
Mm.
Absolutely. You both hit it the nail right on the head as far as what I was thinking. It creates opportunities. It's a motivating factor. It's a indirect motivating factor. It's like they see you on TV, like when they have somebody come to your IV bar, and now it's word of mouth through here, there,
Mm.
that's and the other, or you're addressing Black females who are giving birth or going through labor or whatnot. There's that representation that and that relatability that speaks volumes. I utilize that in my space as far as not just as a practitioner, but also with my nonprofit with Bruton's Books. Like I go to these schools, I talk to these kids, and it's like, okay, how can I motivate? Oh, he made it successfully as a football player. Cool. Okay, what's he doing now? Oh, he made it successfully as a doctor. Like, okay, oh, now he's made it successfully as a business owner. Like, okay, now I've pulled back like three different opportunities that they could possibly reach
Mm.
as a person of color as in an underrepresented group. So no, I think it's great that you both have these powerful platforms, whether it's your social media, whether it's your conferences, that you're utilizing that to empower and represent and also build your brand, right? Like at the end of the day, like we are brand building in that sense too. Like we're not just a Black business owner or a mental health therapist or an IV bar. Like we're so much more, and our brand is representing so much more, and that could be a motivating factor, and also engage that community in such a way that could ultimately be lucrative for you in your respective fields. So, no, and then how how would you? I guess what are some small and impactful actions to uplift other businesses and practitioners, especially those from underrepresented areas?
For me, I tend to check in with my community. Um, Other therapists that I know, every once in a while, I'll send them a DM, I'll send them a text, or an email, just checking in. How are things doing? How can I support you? Um, because sometimes you just need some encouragement,
Mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm,
I've also been known to, throw people's hat in the ring for different
mhm,
nominations for different things,
mhm,
just so that they can see that their work has value. And also, I'm not against referring people to my colleagues, right? If my practice is full, but I know that such and such, they don't have a wait list, I can
mhm,
say there's enough room for all of us to thrive.
mhm, mhm,
Right? And
mhm,
so
mhm,
I think it's important to share the love and share the referrals, and I open doors for people, and
absolutely.
how do I get into that, or how do I can I need to get in touch with this person or that person. Do you have a contact information? I need a new accountant. Like, there's no
Mhm,
need to gatekeep. I hate
yeah,
that. So I share the love as often as I can.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, definitely to agree with Roxanne. There's like enough for everyone. And what's for
Mhm,
me is for me, and what's for you is for you.
that's pretty-
God has a plan for all of us. So I definitely think that I push impact through my community by creating a lot of like free spaces through my social media, webinars, also Zooms, where I'm encouraging nurses to understand what their options are. So whether that's, starting an IV hydration business, getting into midwifery school, becoming an influencer, knowing that they're capable and giving them like gems on how they can scale certain industries, because
mhm,
sometimes people don't do things because they don't know where to start or
yeah.
how to do it.
Right.
So I'm
Mhm,
all about not gatekeeping either. So even if it's down to letting you know my vendors, my pharmacy, like, yes, you can do it. I think that the
mhm,
execution factor is why a lot of people don't become business owners. It's not because they don't have the information, but it's more so because they're trying to enter a gate kept industry that's not really for us. But when they find someone that looks like whether that's me or Roxanne, like we create those spaces and give those gems, and it's only up from there. So I'm all about reaching back and just showing and paving the way to help nurses, nurse practitioners, midwives understand like you can do this too. Like let me show
yeah.
you that you can do it. You do have to execute
Mhm,
it, but I'm gonna give you the
mhm,
gem to let you know, like someone that looks like you, that talks like you, that walks like you can do this
mhm.
too. So it's all about just
Absolutely.
paving the way, reaching back and just giving resources and just being that inspiration by living the life that you know that you deserve, but also showing people that they're capable of doing the same thing.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Y'all hit the nail right on the head again. It's like execution is key.
Mhm.
It's huge. It's huge as far as because you can go to a business class and you might couple pick up a couple tips here and there, but like okay, what I learned in the notebook don't mean ain't gonna do a dang thing out there in the real world. Like I got to go out there and put myself out there. I gotta grind. And I think what we haven't touched on a lot throughout this conversation is that the fact that you both were grinders, right? Like you had to grind to get to where you are,
Mhm.
right? Like there's all these obstacles, but you're grinding day in and day out, day in and day out, to a point maybe it's sometimes exhaustion or you don't want to do it anymore or whatever,
Yeah.
and you're still finding that energy to go about life in that business and to ultimately reach your goals. So I just wanted to give kudos to y'all as far as that grind because it is not easy. It is not
It's
easy, and
I kind of want to piggyback on that because it's like I have ADHD, my brain just like I just come. But when you
Love it.
just really quick before like when you say grinding and like business and starting all these different avenues, I think that this may be something that's like not really controversial, but I think that balance is an illusion. And I think that often we're trying to
Mm. Sorry.
oh, I can't wait! I can't wait! Woo! Let me get my tea
so
real
for
quick.
the
Say
longest
that
I tried to
again.
I tried to show up as the best girlfriend, the best daughter, the best work fitness guru, the best clean eater, the best business owner, student, all these different things. I try to show up 100% in every single thing. And I was beat down to the ground. And also everything, I wasn't able to execute things effectively. Nothing was, even though thought I was showing up 100%, things was not getting 100% effort. So when I started to scale back and realize that balance is an illusion, especially as an entrepreneur, because we know that as an entrepreneur, we're really working 24/7. You have to recognize in this season right now what matters more. So you have this 100% scale. What is going to get 60% of my energy? What is going to get 40%? What's going to get 20%? And unfortunately, everything will not get 100%, but that does not make you a horrible person. That doesn't make you a bad person. I'm in school for my DNP right now, my doctorate of nursing practice.
Hey.
Unfortunately, I can't give 100% to that right now because my business is in its prime and I have to show up for my business. Am I going to fail out of school? No. But am I going to probably get a 92%, maybe even an 89? Maybe. But I know right now, in order to scale my business, to scale as a potential fiance, hopefully soon, scale as a student, as a brand new midwife, I have to put a little bit more energy into certain things. And unfortunately, I may not hit the gym 7 days a week. It may be 3 or 4 days a week, but I can't beat myself up about that. So recognizing that balance is an illusion, and every season will look different. And you have to recognize what matters the most in this season. So as an entrepreneur, sometimes we get guilty, we shame ourselves, but give yourself grace. Give yourself grace and take that information and advice and kind of think on it and run with it if you want to.
I like that. I like that. I know your shift is going to go when you get that fiance. It's going to the energy is going to shift one way or the other. Like you can't say that it's going to stay one side. Like we're going to
let me grind right now before that.
Now it's grinding season now.
I'm grinding right now.
Roxanne, go ahead.
Girl, you are preaching. You cannot be 100% in all the things simultaneously. Right? If so, I run a business, I mentor people, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I'm not gonna get A+ in all of those spaces all the time. Sometimes I am working till late and my husband has to put the children down to bed because mommy is working. And other days I am not working and I take them to school and I go on the field trip and I do the things and it's Mrs. Francis at the school, right? And other, like, you can't, it's to your point, Queen, it's a recipe for exhaustion and burnout. So you have to prioritize, you have to decide, right? What is this going to look like? And if it means that, on this season, I'm going to take a couple extra days off, then that's fine. But in the grinding season is grinding time. And so we can't expect, and people expect this a lot, I find, of women, to be the amazing fiance, girlfriend, wife, to be the amazing mom if you have children, to be the amazing business owner. I heard someone say once that moms are expected to work like they don't have children and to parent like they don't have jobs, right? Like you can't do it all, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to pick. My calendar is busy, but I live by it. If it's not on the calendar, it is not happening. If I go to the dentist, on the calendar, right? So because you have to compartmentalize. About to your point, balance is an illusion that people are flaming out, trying to meet. I'm not saying that you should only work all the time and that you shouldn't rest, or you should only rest all the time and you shouldn't work, but it's constantly shifting. It's constantly shifting, and we have to learn to get comfortable with that shift.
Absolutely. Great points. Yeah, compartmentalization. I feel like there's been such a negative adage with that concept, but it's like I learned that while I played. It's like leave home at home, leave work at work, right? You don't let them bleed into one another because one's going to be adversely affected, and the little bit of energy that you may have for home might be messed up because of that energy you're bringing from work, and vice versa. So, yeah, no, those are great points. Like I never thought of it that way, but it's like, man, there are some days where I can't parent, right? Like I am so exhausted and like I'm there, but I'm not there. Or there's some days like, oh, I'm there for my patients, but am I 150% on like I usually am? Am I the same energetic guy dancing while we're doing treatment and stuff like that? Like, right? It's like, man, that is so real. So real. No, I appreciate that. Those are great insights, man. Um, I know we're getting tight on time right here, but I wanted to open the floor for any questions that anybody may have for Queen and Roxanne or myself. This has been some great conversation.
It looks like it's a question in the question box.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'm anticipating an upcoming question, but to what extent have expanded your community to include those who are not in your visible minority? And what benefits have you found to doing so while honoring your lived experience? What common experiences perhaps can you lean on?
Um, to what extent have you expanded the community?
Okay, so I'll answer that this way. So I was saying to David earlier that I run a conference for mental health therapists in private practice. And this is a conference that's open to everyone, right? But a lot of Black therapists come to the conference because I have a dark brown face, right? But we get other people who come in who are South Asian, Asian, white, um, and they're just as comfortable, right? Because no one's gatekeeping, no one's pushing anyone out. It's all about love and support and lifting each other up. We're all trying to make it to the mountaintop, regardless of what you look like, right? And if you approach that from a sense of connection and acceptance, then I think we'll all get along. As long as you're not coming into this space trying to create division or trying to with stereotypes, um, trying to create separation, then there's room for everybody. And I think that even though I'm a Black woman, um, I have white people on my team. My second hand in the office is a white woman. She's brilliant. Um, and our business thrives partly because of her, right? I think while it's important to represent, from my standpoint, there's room for everybody. And I think because I'm a social worker and my heart bleeds social justice all the time. And I think once our values align, that's it for me. I think once our values align, we're gonna be fine. We're gonna be just great. But if our values do not align, we got to go.
Right.
I definitely
Queen.
agree with you, Roxanne. I also host annual nurses like events, like networking events, where I open different venues for nurses to like come in and basically network with one another. And I also host Black Maternal Health Week events where I'm highlighting Black community birth workers. So not even just Black birth workers, but both birth workers in general. And it's like an appreciation event to really appreciate them as colleagues, but also give them that appreciation so they don't lead to burnout and they can perform better for our patients. I think that there's so much beauty in, again, community. And like you said, there's room for everyone. And we still have clients and patients to take care of. So creating that inclusivity for our counterparts is important. Like we still want everyone to feel included because they have to understand how to take care of us too. Like, we have to understand how to make our patients and our clients that look like us feel included. So that goes for the Black woman that's in labor and she needs that advocacy, but she has white OBGYN or a white midwife or a white doula. That does not make them not efficient provider for this client, but they may not be able to connect with that client in certain ways. But them being our colleague, we're able to educate them and kind of fill in that gap and, help them understand how to take care of our type of clientele. So I do think that there's so much beauty in bringing in our counterparts to help them understand, like, we're in this together. Like, but
Mhm.
if you take care of a client or patient that looks like us, you understand at some degree on how to help them feel included and like you're
Mhm.
advocating for
Mhm.
them as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. We don't want to essentially put them in a position or a place where what we felt like our life history or our family history, our ancestry history has felt right, being ostracized, castrated, just removed from any type of success or business or school or whatever the case may be. That's not the purpose of this, not the purpose of our conversation. It's like we're welcoming values, and we all bring our own personal and diverse experiences to every room that we step in. And how can we make that room better? Like if somebody's a white individual and they're going to help me grow my business, or an Asian individual, or Native American, or whatever the case may be, how can it, like, ultimately, like, do our values align? Or and how can we essentially help each other grow, where I can take care of yours, you can take care of mine, and we can meet in the middle and just build this dynamic paradigm that's unstoppable, right? So no, great. We had another question in the chat, and it's from Phoebe. Do you have a resource for networking events that are affordable for those who are just starting their businesses? Um, and go ahead, if I, I know y'all been in practice for a while, so if you can remember what you did at first, that would be great.
Well, I actually network to this day. Like I'm at a networking event like at least once or probably twice a week. So
Mhm.
I say
Yeah.
network today. But I think that I know it seems very like simple, but Eventbrite is very resourceful in terms of figuring out like what's going on in your area, following influencers, maybe like Roxanne or myself to see like what events are coming up. I often post what events I'm going to. So depending on what your niche is, making sure you're following those leaders in that industry to see like what they're
Yes.
doing and what they're going to kind of align that community. But I think Eventbrite is a great resource. ChatGPT, like great, get on there, ask ChatGPT when in
Yes.
doubt, and they can find you some networking events as well. But I know for like nurses and healthcare providers, I actually have a really large Rolodex of events that I'm going to throughout the year. So I'll feel free to join, drop those in the ambassador chat as well, so you all can have some insight.
Mhm. I agree. And depending on where you are, there's going to be different events. If you have to register with a college or an association, they might have events that they might be running that are specific to your practice or your industry. Um, Again, like Queen said, the networking, seeing what events are out there, just going to Google and typing in your city and type in your area or your field and put networking or entrepreneur event and see what pops up. You would be surprised. There's tons of conferences, lots of entrepreneur events that are happening. And also, like Queen said, tapping into leaders in your field and following them on social media and see what they're up to.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and another way is, like, I mean, depending on what your particular medical space is, like, but for me, when I first started up 3 years ago, roughly 3 years ago, um, just get involved in high schools. Depending on what your niche is, sometimes they're just looking for a sponsor throughout the football season, which is like $200 or something like that. Now you're doing that, or you can do a workshop for the school and movement assessment and things of that nature. So not everything has to be like these big expensive organizations or whatnot. It's like, no, I feel like there's more value building that homely connection right there, instead of forking out all this money, more bang for bucks. What's your ROI, right? What's your return on
Mhm.
investment? Like, right, you gotta think business, right? It's like, oh, if I'm
Mhm.
going to pay $2,000 for this conference, I'm not going to see a cent. There's $2,000 gone, right? But if I
Mhm.
pay $200 and I get $2,000 in return, like, shoot, I made you know, what, 1,000% increase right there, right? It's
Yep.
like,
Yep.
yeah, so like,
Yeah.
so yeah, just keeping that in mind. Like, not everything has to be grandiose. It could be small, but small is just as impactful. And my
You
dad
don't
said the
have
way
to
you do
go to
small
everything.
things, yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad said the way you do small things, the way you do all things, right? It's like building, creating that habit. So very powerful. Yes. Any other questions, Phoebe? Thank you for the question. Any other questions in this chat? Oh, we got some Q&A right here. Let's see. Do you have any suggestions on how to work with the gatekeepers. There's a lot of gatekeeping in Alberta, and as a mental health professional and business owner, I'm struggling to establish referral networks because of said gatekeeping.
That's a tough one. Well, if you know people who are gatekeeping, then they are not your people. That is for sure. Um, I would encourage you to broaden your reach if you can. Like if you know people who are, um, on social media, if they're on LinkedIn, if they're on Instagram, if they're on Facebook, maybe Jane can help you figure out who are some people who are ambassadors who are in your field, your area of practice. I certainly hope there are no gatekeepers on the Jane ambassador list. But you know, if you know people who are gatekeepers, you definitely have to steer clear of them. And I would encourage you to just broaden your reach as much as you can and connect with people who don't gatekeep. And mind you, sometimes you have to pay to play. Sometimes you might have to pay to get into a certain room or sit at a particular table, as long as it's not breaking the bank, right? Sometimes you have to pay an entry fee to an event for the gate to open, right?
Yeah.
But definitely connect with people who are willing to share some information. There's a lot of free information out there. Not all the information is free, but there's a lot of free information out there. And sometimes all it takes is a question. And if the answer is no, then next, on to the next person, right? Try not to give up, even if you find yourself around some gatekeepers, because there are people out there who are willing to share information.
Yeah, for sure.
And also to piggyback on that, I know that we're crunching time, but I think that sometimes like it depends on what they're gatekeeping. Like if it's like referrals and stuff like that, yeah, like I refer so many IV hydration clients over just because, like you said, there's room for everyone. But when it comes to like information and also like learning more to get to the next level, sometimes you do have to pay for mentorship and sometimes you do have to pay to get to that next level. Like I'm even in a season too where I was like, to get to the next level, I feel like I've reached a peak and I'm willing to pay like to get there. So sometimes you do have to invest in yourself. A lot of free information is very like baseline and things that we already know. So if you feel like you're running into this constant same information and it's free resources and you're like, okay, but where like I need more, but they're gatekeeping, it's probably because it's very valuable information that they probably paid a lot of money to get to.
Thousands of dollars for
So
it.
I definitely would say, their social media is a not strange place, but like weary place sometimes where you don't really know who to invest into, what to invest into. What I would encourage you to do is do research and that person that you may pay for a mentorship, make sure they're walking the walk, make sure that they're living and they're doing what they need to do in their personal business rather than coach and make sure they're actually like taking clients and doing what you want to do in the future. Because what I realize is sometimes when you don't pay for information, you don't pay attention. And I have been that person before. Sometimes I get this free ebook and I have never opened it. But if I pay $200 for a coaching call,
Yeah.
guess what? I'll be taking
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so as a business owner, you're constantly investing in your mind, you're constantly investing in yourself, and you cannot want a million, not saying you, but I often tell people this, you can't want $1 million business if you can't invest like a penny or two,
Yeah,
Yep,
for
absolutely.
sure. For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you both. No, that I know we were tight on time there. What's up?
What someone said about a mastermind. I'm looking for a mastermind too. So Dr. Perry, do anyone have recommendations on a mastermind program or business mentorship?
Hmm.
Mastermind. I don't know of any. I've been looking for one as well. Dr. Perry, depends on what your niche is. I may have some opportunity for like business mentorship. I may know someone, but as a mastermind, I don't know of. SLP, what does that stand for? I'm sorry.
Your language.
Speech language therapist.
Oh, okay. Speech therapy. Yeah, I don't know of anyone. That's a niche that I'm not really tapped into.
Yeah.
I find anyone out. I mean, now the algorithm have hurt me, so maybe something will come up.
So something pop up. Yep, for sure. For sure. Well, no, I know we're running up on time. If we didn't get to any of your questions in the chat, I'm sorry. But thank you all for joining us for this important conversation. Registration is already open for our next month's session. Check out the chat link and click to register. I'll be meeting with Kelly McKenna to talk about building your practice's branding and how to leverage social media to show up for your business and patients alone. If you want to dive deeper into conversations about clinic life, check out Jane's newest podcast, the Front Desk Podcast, and they dig into what it's like to build a health and wellness business. I had the opportunity to be a guest, and I'm excited to share my story with you all and how it went from the NFL to building my own clinic. My episode drops in a couple weeks, but there are some great conversations you can check out in the meantime. And when mine goes live, I'd love to hear what you think. Um, but with that being said, thank you so very much, Roxanne and Queen, for the great conversation, the great insight, and just the realness of the conversation about the struggles, the mishaps, the learning opportunities, and how we can potentially grow our business. I think it's very, very important that we hear the vulnerability when it comes to being a business owner, that you and some of the challenges and how you overcome. So thank you very much. And with that said, this is Jane, Ambassador episode number 8, office hours number 8. Thank you again. I'm your host. We'll see you next month.
Thank you all.